Starfield has kicked back into marketing mode with the first look at new gameplay in several months. As a new space RPG in the pipeline, this is a game I'll be covering more of over time. This newest update dove into some interesting details that really harken back to older games of the genre, and from Bethesda themselves. And while we'll go over these details briefly, I'd really like to focus on one question that was presented to Todd Howard. Is the game more hard or soft sci-fi? The answer probably won't surprise you, but let's jump in and discuss anyways. So what we were presented in this video was a kind of Q&A featuring the lead game director on Starfield, Todd Howard. And probably the most interesting news revealed was that this will be some form of regular programming that they will use to answer questions from the community, particularly it seems with a focus on Twitter, their Discord server, and the unofficial subreddit. So if you want to be more involved in the run-up to launch, this would be the way. We also were informed of some of the important inspirations behind Starfield, a game that was originally thought up back in the 90s. The first was Sundog, a highly sophisticated space-based RPG with a ton of replayability and a heavy focus on player awareness. It taught you to focus on completing the goals of those around you through creative means, and was a big name in the 80s gaming space. The next was the pen and paper RPG Traveler, once considered to be one of, if not the best RPGs of its time, with some even claiming it would outshine Dungeons & Dragons. Both of these games were heavy on player choice and agency, defining a path and using the tools around you to stick to it. Much more of an RPG feel than an action-adventure one like some other games. And I'm happy to hear Starfield sticking to this route. Then there are the traits. Bethesda always does a great job of building fun and creative traits your character can have, and even remove at times. The same is true in Starfield. You'll have a list of options to help define the role you play, but each trait comes with a consequence, a downside you'll have to deal with. Maybe your parents are alive and well, but they take some of your money every day for their crazy wine-fueled spacewalks. Or maybe you align with a certain in-game religion that earns you perks, but the other one hates spaghetti monsters. There are sure to be many choices and reasons to choose one or the other, and you'll have some sort of quest or mission that you can undertake to solve and remove the trait if you decide you want to change things up. And then of course there's the dialogue system. Of course, with Todd being quite a numbers-focused person, they are touting over 250,000 lines of dialogue in the game at this point, all from other NPCs. Which is great, but we'll have to see if those lines actually have meaning. There could be 10,000 versions of the dying sound. You'd never really know. But the actual dialogue system is truly something to get excited about for the old Bethesda fans. Conversations will have your normal actions and reactions based on the context of the conversation, but upon diving in deeper, there will also be opportunities of persuasion. This will extend into a sort of mini-game that will give you access to certain responses based on your own skill checks in various categories, whether they be dexterity, charisma, strength, or something else. You'll have a certain amount of attempts to get your way based on these choices, but we'll have to wait until later to see just how crazy these situations can turn out. Ultimately, a very exciting dialogue system for an RPG that seems very focused on allowing you to tell a more unique story. And then there was the big question: is Starfield hard sci-fi? Is it the kind of game that has you constantly monitoring your fuel, or dealing with Newtonian physics, or immediately dying in the cold of space? It's hard to answer, as everybody has their own idea of what this means. We even had a debate about it on my stream the other day, where somebody was claiming that Star Citizen doesn't even fit into the sci-fi genre. But that's a whole different conversation. Todd believes Starfield fits into a more hard sci-fi genre, but also of course takes some liberties, as it is a video game and some things need to be done for the enjoyment of players, and I'm sure the devs. While you won't be running out of fuel as you fly your ship around, you will basically have a hard range check on your ship to make sure you can actually make the jump out to a nearby system or planet, encouraging you to upgrade components but not necessarily killing your gaming experience right there on the spot if you miss something. And while we may be living in the future in Starfield, a clear line can still be drawn from current day to the spaceflight of Starfield without losing the plot. From the designs in the ships to the technologies like the warp drives, Everything is pretty grounded and mostly based in current day tech. It has been described in the past as NASA punk. But we're still missing a ton of details surrounding how the game will work, or is even planned to work. We don't know how EVA travel works or what the experience on board ships will be like. We've seen very little of the weapons or defensive items in the game, and we have very little insight into things like cybernetic substances and cultures. There's a lot of room for them to explore with this game, and it could be the case that trying to stick to a traditionally hard sci-fi style may limit them from things that historically they're very good at. On the other hand, there really is no opportunity at the AAA level to experience a true sci-fi space game. So we could see this go either way, but it does sound like they're sticking more towards the hard sci-fi style. But I'd be really curious to hear your opinions on which direction you think would be more exciting for the game. There's no right answer, but there's definitely some fun discussion to be had. And while I generally stick to Star Citizen content here, I'm always looking at space games to cover. So if you want more Starfield coverage, make sure to subscribe to the channel and keep an eye out as I start covering the game more over the next year. Thank you for sticking around to the end and watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.